I think we are live? Question mark. I'll find out when I go on the Twitter. Twitter shitter.
Yeah, there we
Yep, we're
are.
live. Boom. Off and running. And I'll hit record for the podcast. All right, plebs, welcome in to News Made Simple, where we talk about Bitcoin and we talk about the news around Bitcoin, and we say the quiet parts. We say them out loud. We say them out loud. Say the quiet parts out loud. And we want to thank our sponsor, the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet, for securing our sats at all times. Go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin Made Simple. Use the promo code Bitcoin Made Simple to get 5% off. And secure your sats, because we all know the exchanges are insolvent. Celsius, hello. We got to get your money secure and take care of it. But we don't know where Luke is. He is probably on top of a volcano somewhere in South America, sunning his balls. So, or lavaing his balls. I don't know. I'm sure that's a thing.
What's the word you just used?
Lavaing.
Oh, like, lavaing.
Like lava.
I thought you said correlating. I'm like, is that like a technique for tanning your balls?
I don't know what correlating is. No, I'm not.
Pat, come here.
So, anyways, the big thing we want to talk about would be what happened this morning. The United States White House came out and said, we want to put together a little group that makes sure that Bitcoin doesn't use too much energy, and we want to make sure that Bitcoin doesn't burn things and it uses too much gas, and we want to emit less carbon. Sorry for the whiny voice, but that's what I hear whenever they're talking. Is this like this little like whiny, like bitchy voice that's like, I'm just so sick of it. It uses electricity, and I need more of it for me. And I can confirm
more energy from me, not for thee.
Yeah, exactly. I can confirm to the White House that it does, because I'm running a miner now, as you guys know, and it uses a lot of electricity. And guess what? It's great. I really like it. I like knowing that the electricity, I like looking at the power line at my house and going, man, that thing is just turning that electricity right into sats in my wallet as we go. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think they're going to try and do with this executive order, or whatever they're going to do, or this group that's like, hey, let's make sure that it doesn't blow up the world? Which, by the way, I say this all the time, but they want to be carbon neutral or carbon negative. But we are carbon beings. We are made of carbon. So that means they want less of you. They want less of us. They want less of all things made carbon, because the lizard people want to take over.
Yeah, they hate you. I mean, that's what it boils down to. And essentially, this is them panicking. Again, like I talk about Davos, they are a baby that has been put in a corner, and they are just lashing out and trying to shove all these crazy policies out before people find out, and it's too late. And so they're just trying to go with the nuclear option. And this is them pandering. And they've done this with other policies, and they do this with policies in general. And I think it's to test the waters of how people think, and just to get them accustomed to, this thing's going to be regulated, blah, blah, blah. But again, I think that it's just them panicking, because they can't control Bitcoin.
There's nothing they can do to control it.
Exactly. And they need to keep on the facade and the mask that we know exactly what we're doing. We are in control. You are subordinate to us. And so expect regulations and expect policies and standards being set by us that you are going to be forced to follow, like ESG. And it kills me to see people in the Bitcoin space come out and try to appease them and work with these people, which, yeah, you're
They're
going to
not
have to,
appeasable.
yeah. And you're going to have to like come into a compromise. But when you do that, you are compromising yourself and you are giving too much legitimacy in the first place when you're like, okay, well, ESG can be great for Bitcoin because, it's like a speculative attack, like Michael Saber's doing with the dollar and issuing
Ishnewing.
corporate bonds to just buy more Bitcoin. And it's not the same thing. Like, sure, I Elon Musk is doing a great thing because he's basically taking advantage of these carbon credits, and it's basically like, well, I already pay them a bunch of taxes, and getting this free government money is just taking back the taxes that they've already taken from me because it's my money still there anyway. And
It's
so,
my money and I need it now.
exactly. But I mean, sure, you could do the same thing with Bitcoin, but again, it goes beyond Bitcoin because when you bring in ESG, you are basically forcing yourself to abide by energy practices that aren't efficient and are not beneficial for each human being. Because if you are following policies that are mandating you to say, hey, you need this fraction of energy coming from solar and this fraction coming from hydro and this one coming from nuclear, or like they're actually going to find like nuclear solutions because nuclear would just blow them out of the water, send them out of the job. It's you just opening up the Pandora's box of you're not going to have any freedom or say so when it comes to energy. That's
Did
what
you
you're
see?
doing, I think. And you should not, this should just be like a no tolerance towards this because ultimately they want you to own nothing and be happy. They want you to starve. They want you to be
That guy
poor.
that smiles.
Yeah.
The guy that's dead inside.
So I really don't see compromising and working with people, if you can call them people,
The lizard people.
working to come to a middle way of, sure, how can we make these environmentally friendly policies work for us in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin by itself is environmentally friendly because
Mm-hmm.
it takes quote unquote wasted energy to create the most sound money that has been created in history. And it's not wasted energy. It is
It's used
just,
for a very good purpose to make sure that you're not getting robbed blind behind your back.
yeah. And
Here's exactly what they say. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, I believe, like, I can't remember if it's a third or 2/3. I can't remember what the stat was that Tom said, but let's just call it like a third of the energy that we send just goes straight down to the grid as it is.
Like it just leaves. It
Yeah, it
doesn't
just
get
goes to the
consumed.
grid. Like, there's so much potential energy that isn't consumed by humans, is my point.
So that's
So
like my miner
energy
is
can't be
using
created or
electricity that was
destroyed,
going to get
but if you
wasted
want to,
anyways.
energy can't be created or destroyed, but if you want to say Bitcoin wastes energy, well, that wasted energy is already happening. And you don't
Yeah.
hear any of these policymakers bitch and complain about that. So at the end of the day, they don't care about the environment. They care about themselves and preserving their legacy. And we are just in the way by being merely humans trying to survive.
Yep. I mean, we just want to be left alone and do our thing, and apparently that's too much for them. Here's exactly what. So this is what on BitcoinMagazine.com they put. It says the White House is drafting policy to address Bitcoin mining as it seeks to lessen energy consumption and emissions. In March 2022, President Biden signed an executive order in a whole of government approach to regulate the broader cryptocurrency market. Per the executive order's timeline, a report is expected to be released in August detailing the climate impact and other governing concerns. Well, I will tell you for one thing, their governing concern is the fact that they can't govern Bitcoin. Um, but I mean, we know what this is going to be. It's going to be a nothing burger. They're going to come out and say it uses a lot of electricity. God, I wish it didn't. Um, and then they're going to probably try and crack down. I mean, think about it. Like China is the most authoritarian country on the planet, and they tried to ban it like 8 times, and still like 20% of the hash power comes out of China. So like they'll never, I mean, I think the US is just doing this to posture, and really, there'll be midterms coming up, so they want to be able to say to all the people that are, eating their
Exactly.
soybeans and eating all their your crickets and stuff like that, like, hey, we're trying to save the planet. um it's just so funny to me, like how many things to save the planet actually make your life worse and or kill people. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the plants were more lush whenever there was more carbon in the air. Like, it would be actually better for the environment to emit more carbon. We'd have better, like a more fruitful planet. Like during the dinosaur times, the trees were much taller. There's a reason. And it was because they farted all the time and didn't sit there and have ESG, like, hey, Mr. Triceratops, stop farting so much. You're ruining the planet. Um, anyways, but what were you gonna say?
You had mentioned midterms, and I think that's like the root of it is just them trying to do everything, do every action, get all the attention, and the just mobilize their constituencies, whatever they have left of them, to bring up these issues, whether it's the environment, whether it's Roe v. Wade, whether it's gun rights, just to mobilize whatever left they have of their voting base to keep them in power. And that's failing. And so this whole green energy thing is just another example of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I jokingly, because I when I did the March Madness thing uh for Bitcoin 2022, where people were voting on everything, I forgot I just somehow omitted Michael Saylor, but then I kept joking when people were asking where's Saylor at, and I said he lost in the ESG conference finals.
Yeah.
Um, because you know you can try and appease them, but it's not going to work. You can't appease people that are unappeasable. You can't satisfy people that no matter what you do, they won't be satisfied. Um, and I don't know. So, anyways, enough of that. If you what any other thoughts on that, or you want to move on to other topics?
Uh, I guess this topic I want to bring up is somewhat relevant. It's more of like global politics, what's happening. So the European Union officially is actually their oil embargo against Russia. So oil, relating that back to energy. And this is just your typical kind of like George Soros neo-conny strategy, which is them again trying to take as many barrels of oil off the market to make it more expensive and just painful. And I think that might be a way for them to just get people used to, oh yeah, well, it's too expensive, like we can't use this kind of energy. Maybe soft motion people into thinking, oh, renewable energy like solar or whatever, green energy, that's going to be a bit better for us. But anywho, just in this whole oil embargo story, it's basically a way to because Russia's winning the battle in the war in Ukraine, undoubtedly. Like it's not a debate here, and so this is just a way for our favorite globalists to punish them and force them to cap their oil wells and just back up their oil infrastructure. And people like Peter Zion has been saying that it's going to remove 5 million barrels off the market, which is just complete bull. I think it's going to be more like so I've heard it's going to be more like removing 1 to 2 million barrels of oil off the market a day, and that would send oil to I think $200 a barrel. And that's because it would be less impactful on an economic like global scale, because OPEC is still siding with Russia on this. And I mentioned in the past, like Greece is siding with this, and people are using roundabout ways to get oil from Russia because people are standing up against these Davos European Union policies of we're just going to choke you out economically and you're not going to have energy because people don't want to stand for that. You're seeing a bifurcation on the global scale of we don't want to go through with this great reset. We actually are energy independent, or we have the ways to get this energy because we have trading partnerships with other people around the world, Russia, and people just again want to do what they want and live their lives and be happy and prosperous. And the most efficient way that we can get energy, the better off society is going to be. And so let's see here a little more in the weeds here. I mean, it's basically so OPEC is siding with Russia over Europe because there's no reason any of the oil producers would side with Davos and stopping the use of oil. This is basically just them saying, fuck your climate change and ESG policies. Also, if you want to artificially scarce oil now, well, Russia goes, hey, we'll take your rubles, please, and thank you. So
Mhm.
again, this is just another example of all these weapons that they try to throw at Russia. It just strengthens them because the sanctions aren't working, and it just strengthens the ruble itself. And oil isn't going anywhere, basically, and neither is the dollar. So segue to the dollar here. We saw Powell have a meeting with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden basically was cucked by Powell. I want to say and make the new hashtag that Powell is my pal, because that's my macro
Powell is my pal.
economic thesis of a strong dollar is better than the alternative of just getting rid of the Fed and the banks and the whole CBDC issued by the IMF and Davos taking over. Because Davos taking over, of course, means, we abide by these ESG environmental policies. And essentially, Powell is he's not showing any signs of
Not going to weaken
holding
the
back
dollar.
on tightening, on quantitative tightening. Quantitative tightening officially started in June, which today's June 2nd, so yesterday. So they're going to start moving assets off the balance sheet. I think a lot of that is like mortgage-backed securities and treasuries. And so we're going to see the beginning of the tightening. But I keep arguing tightening has happened since June of last year, when the reverse repo payout rate went to 5 basis points. And now I think it's like 30 or whatever it might be. And so this is all about removing dollar liquidity out of the market and strengthening the dollar, weakening the euro. And you see this battle of central banks, the ECB, the European Central Bank versus the Fed. And ECB is backed by Davos, and the Fed, Team Fed being Powell, and commercial banks, JP Morgan, all that, they want to maintain their power and control because the banking cartel in the US is very powerful. And Davos wants to get rid of that power and just have everything centralized from the IMF and IMF issues like MMT, CBDC towards the central banks, and everyone has an account at the central bank. And that, again, removes the power that the banking system in the US has, because they are really in charge of the dollars that get distributed out into the rest of the world. And nowhere else in the world has that power. And that's essentially what Davos's agenda is, to economically cut down the power that America has, because you can't have a sovereign American nation. Like when we think of the principles of what America was founded on, it was just like, fuck you, king. And you had all these supercell like loyalists like Alexander Hamilton and others try to just copy paste the royalty that is in Europe into America. And I think that's what the battle that we see now, because we have the current administration, which are quasi Davo sleeper cells that are just loyalist to Europe as it is. And we have people that sure are oligarchs to some extent in the United States, but they have benefited off the profit and the strength of the American banking cartel and banking system. And they are losing their power overseas, or with things like LIBOR, and just being able to have this, European loyalist control, and basically cutting down what power that the American banks have. And so you have Powell come in and reverse all that by going hard in the paint of tightening, pulling dollar liquidity out of the world economy. And we see that there's no signs of stopping and that he's not fucking around because the savings rate is at 4.4%, which is insanely low. And when the savings rate's low, you're going to see tightening, where the opposite of that happened during COVID when savings rate was super up. And that's when we were like, or Powell and the Fed was like, money printing to go burr, because they're Keynesians at the end of the day. They want to control monetary policy and they need the velocity of money. And when people are hoarding, quote unquote, hoarding their money, which again, hoarding your money is just you as an individual making the most rash economical decision to where I need to save this money because I'm uncertain about what the future is going to hold. When you have high savings rates, your central monetary planners are like, no, you need to push that money out and just have this free flow of cash, make this facade of everything's hunky-dory in the world economy. And so you're seeing the opposite of that happen. When people don't have any savings, it's, the signs of recession. And it's like there are no signs of quantitative easing coming out. So there's not going to be any more quantitative easing until probably savings rate of like 8%. And again, remember, again, this is just the Keynesian playbook, like it wasn't in
It's just playing out the way that it has to.
Yeah.
If you don't switch to an Austrian mind.
Yeah. And not to say that Powell is an Austrian. Powell is just following. He's in line with his incentives of maintaining the control that the banks have. And the way that you maintain that control is by strengthening the dollar. And if it means that they are going to crash the economy and force a recession, and people need to market, sell, dump all equities they have and run to dollar liquidity, then at the end of the day, that's what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm. So I saw Laser Hodl was talking about kind of pushing back on the idea that the Fed is when Tom was talking about Tom Luongo was talking about what the plan is that you just laid out, and saying that he thinks that they're in bed with Davos and everything. But what do you think? Because I think Tom kind of said both can be true at the same time. Like there's a bifurcation of like, is there anybody here in the States that wants to go, that doesn't want to go with Davos's plan and like actually wants to like make America strong?
I mean,
other than like, I'm talking like politicians. Like I don't know. I just don't I don't know. Maybe I have such little faith in any of them, but I feel like they're all just like puppets for other people's purposes.
Yeah, I think I mean, Davos is everything that the current administration is, right? And we're seeing people on the right fight against that because what the current administration is pushing is, I mean, gender reassignment stuff, and that's pissing off parents in schools. And I mean, it's just a cultural degrade from the inside and a collapse of society from the ground up that they're trying to push. And that is Davos's agenda. Like the big root of it is they attack America financially, but they also have the cultural playbook of the George Soros like astroturfing, trying to just deteriorate people at the grassroots level with astroturfing tactics of just brainwashing and just funding people to make these stupid, progressive, crazy ideas that is not really natural to how human beings or families want to raise their children in society. And so it doesn't really come down to, do you need to understand what's happening like on a monetary basis? No, you need to understand who are these people that are making your life harder and are changing the way that you grew up and changing the cultural morale and the zeitgeist of what is right and what is wrong. and people are ready to vote, right, not right as in correctly, but I guess in this way it will be correctly. The pendulum's going to swing, and it's going to keep swinging back and forth. But you have people that have shows like Garland Nixon, who in the past has been like very left leaning, but he's a black dude who's moved from like the left, and he's now saying like, hey, all these people really kind of like hate us. This Davos agenda are trying to destroy us, and you're seeing people that historically have voted left are now trying to vote right, and you have all these people like both on the left and right libertarians coming here and are trying to vote for the things that are going to favor them because it's just the rational decision. They basically just want to, I mean, you're seeing things, whether it be like all the news stories, whether it's critical race theory, if it's like gender reassignment stuff, if it's like a border crisis. I mean, you just see all the social decay and cultural decay, and people are just standing up against it, and it's like uniting everyone who's
I
just
mean,
trying
this is
to
the
step
time
on.
for a third party. Like, if it doesn't happen now, it probably never will.
Yeah. Well,
Because
I mean, a third party's out of the picture. I think it's people. I mean, like Greg, someone like Greg DeSantis, because
Ron
like
DeSantis,
that's the mayor. I mean, governor of Florida, right?
Ron DeSantis, yeah.
Ron DeSantis. There we go. It's him and people like Tulsi Gabbard possibly coming together for like a 2024 ticket. But the thing is, you have people from both sides of the aisle realizing that the global status quo is going to hurt people, and
Hmm.
those people at the end of the day are the ones that where their votes matter, despite a a change at the ballot box or
Hmm.
like a voting hack.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so I don't think that can happen again this time. I think people wised up, because if it did, then I think there would be probably like a revolution.
yeah. I
And so I
mean,
think it just basically comes down to people's like common sense. People are wising up, and they they actually for once in history are learning from the lessons, and they're just sick of COVID. Every COVID regulation, every every death, every loss of job, everything that forced someone to go into debt because they were unemployed for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years because of these stupid arbitrary regulations that have hurt people and families. People are waking up to the reality that it's because of these people, and people on both sides of the aisle want to come and make a change.
I think a lot of people were starting to quietly realize that they were duped, and they're not going to
Exactly.
really say anything about it. Like, they're not going to come back and be like, but it was funny because I think it was Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, um, posted something of like, oh, this, like, we know this now, we know this was a lie, and somebody retweeted it and was like, Bitcoiners have literally been saying this from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, we knew this all. Um, and you just have to look at, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I I would love to see like a Tulsi Gabbard, Ron DeSantis ticket. I'd vote for that before I'd vote for anything else I can think of. Um, but like, honestly, and if you're, a Trump supporter, you're probably gonna be like, oh my god, I can't believe he's saying this. But like, I think Trump coming back and running is like not a great thing for the country.
No, he'll probably be just like a distraction on the campaign for the left to just bitch about. And
and
then,
and it'll just, whether or not he is going to do good, like, he's just going to further the divide, not by his actions necessarily, but by the way that the left is going to flip the f out. um it's just gonna They're gonna make it a mess, further. So, in a perfect world, I'd like to see a DeSantis Gabbard ticket where it's just like there's like a lot of us all that are sitting there on like the both sides of different aisles, and we're like looking at each other like, hey, like, are you cool if we just like progress forward as humans without all that batshit crazy stuff? Like, can we just drop the drop the batshit crazy things and be normal? Like, just kind of walk forward. Like, let people be their own people, do whatever they want, let them have their freedom, and like kind of just make sure the roads work, and
Yeah.
we have a military like that would protect us. Things like that. Let's just kind of get back to that.
And
Um,
honestly, at the end of the day, if voting doesn't fix it, which, you know, I've been, I go back and forth on whether voting works, but I'm more of like the late, like paleo Murray Rothbard mindset now to, vote for Republicans because they gave you most of your money back and they vote more in what your personal right in favor of your personal rights. And when that doesn't work, it's all going to depend on hyper localization. So
yep,
your community, and you can
yep.
relate to that because from what we were talking about off camera, you're very self-sovereign and you're set up, and you probably have good relationships with your local community. And
Let's just put
and
it this way. I this morning um was pulled over because I was going a little too fast. Um, but was given a warning. Um, and I may or may not have to do with the fact that I have a personal relationship with the local law enforcement, and
yeah,
like, hey, how you doing? And I mean, it was like literally the word was like, oh, they said you're a good guy. So like, just make sure you watch that one area. It's tough. Make sure you bring your speed down, blah blah blah.
yeah, it's who
um
you know, it's about the community, and also making sure that you're able to be self-sufficient, but you have relationships with the people that provide the resources you need. Like, uh, maybe you should even have Tom Luan go on because he's talked about this on his podcast and going on other podcasts, but he's got a goat farm and he has his own like global supply chain kind of resource thing at a micro level because he has to go buy bales of hay and everything that he needs to provide for his uh like own like global economy on his farm. He's
hmm
seen that like at at his own like local personal like life level, the prices of commodities, uh and it's really cool how it's a microcosm of the global chaos that's happening to everyone.
yeah, like right now Walmart and Target can burn through some cash, but that price is going to get pushed on to you eventually.
Yeah,
I mean, the price of diesel can be through the roof. And I mean, I'm sure you saw the article Preston shared, talking about like how much diesel is used for transporting goods around the country. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I just keep telling people get sovereign, get in
yeah.
your own little bubble, and rely on yourself as much as you can. Um, but
But again, that goes back to like this is what Davos and all of them like.
don't
This
want
is
you
their
to do.
policy: making diesel too expensive, making commodities expensive, making your life as difficult as possible to where you
They
own
just
nothing and
want you
be
to
happy.
capitulate. They just
Yeah,
want you to capitulate and say, "Fine, just give me my little bubble. Um, put me in my little bubble and turn on Movies Plus or Netflix. Um,
yeah.
because one will replace the other. Um, and
I would
uh,
replace if the listeners on here, they probably want to replace that with the less cucked solution.
yeah, exactly. Um, and by the way, we should mention our sponsor again. Go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin made simple. Use the promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off of your Bitbox O2 hardware wallet, which is the best looking hardware wallet there is out there. I will say that there are a lot of creative wallets out there, but this one is sleek and simple and easy to use, and a smooth brain like me can use it with no problem. So I strongly recommend you go get yourself one. And again, take your sats off the exchanges, because something that it's almost a great, like, Bitbox, they have to be sitting there going, wow, what a great ad for us. When Celsius, this is like the last news item I wanted to bring up, Celsius is obviously in a liquidity crunch, and they're offering people, they're like, hey, if you put $100 on here, we'll give you $2,000 worth of Bitcoin. So something is wrong there. And that's how desperate they are for liquidity, because they're like, they've been playing around with people's Bitcoin, probably. They've been, rehypothecating it. And all of a sudden, as people, the good news is, if you look, put much I don't put much weight into the on-chain metrics, because the illiquid supply, things like that, that it could change that quickly. I mean, the fees are so little, um, but the people are taking coins off of exchanges at an incredibly high rate. We see that all the time, and so these exchanges, one by one, are going belly up. And if, like many of you that are listening who do not like Coinbase, if you want to take Coinbase to task, withdraw your coins, send them to a Bitbox O2 hardware wallet, send them off the exchange, and they will start to panic. And are you going to take up Celsius on their offer to give them $100, they give you $2,000 back? I mean, what a Ponzi! Like, every single scam you see in Twitter comments is like, send me, $50, I'll give you 100. But they're like, literally, they legitimately telling their customers, like, put $100 out there, we'll give you $2,000 in Bitcoin.
It's a lie.
And what's their end game there? Because, like, what are they going to do? Freeze your ability to withdraw it and hope that the price of Bitcoin runs so high that when they get to litigation, they only have to do a Mount Gox approach where they give you $2,000 worth. But, I mean, because, like, think of the people that held their money in Mount Gox, but in fiat terms, I think, which is very few. And I'm going to be releasing, I think, next week, my interview with Michael Schmid, who is doing the Bitcoin water heater, the mining water heater. But
nice.
I think he said he was a Mount Gox customer, but he was one of, like, the less than 20% that kept their, or made their claim in Bitcoin denominated. I think when you made your claim against Mount Gox, you could claim it in Bitcoin or claim it in dollars, and most people did dollars. And so now, like, say the price of Bitcoin was $100, then if you had 10 Bitcoin sitting there, and instead of saying I claim 10 Bitcoin, you said I claim $1,000, because the price crashed. So you're probably like, hey, I'll get a nice spread here. But that 10 Bitcoin right now would be pretty nice, instead of the $1,000. So, I don't know what their end game is, but if you guys don't follow Cory Clipston, he's a fellow Cory gang member.
Here come Cory.
Yeah. Yep. He said, I got to talk to him, because it's got to be something with our name, because a lot of the things he says out loud are things that I want to say out loud, but I have been just I try to bite my tongue and not say things. But he definitely has more clout in the Bitcoin world and has been in here longer to be able to just kind of call these things out. I mean, that's his full-time job, is working in Bitcoin, so he can dedicate the time to it. But yeah, follow Cory, because he will point out the scams one by one. Yeah, it's a pretty good track record. But
Yeah,
anyways,
pretty good at it. He's going on that front. There. So a little bit more of a quick news story. I want to say a little bit bullish. I think I talked about last week or maybe the week before, but how institutions like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs are being forced to offer Bitcoin products to stay relevant, which is bullish
mhm.
for Bitcoin. Despite if they are reluctant towards it, their customers are demanding this kind of stuff. But story that came out from Bitcoin Magazine and probably elsewhere, Goldman Sachs is reportedly in talks with FTX to facilitate derivatives trading for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But FTX is looking for a license to modify them that will allow it to function as both an exchange and intermediary for derivatives. And if FTX was successful in acquiring this license, it could begin to see the removal of intermediaries such as Goldman in derivatives markets. So, I mean, derivatives is you may be kind of a fiat, and futures Bitcoin market is kind of negative because it's similar to the gold markets where it kind of goes hand in hand into like the manipulation in the price of gold, and we're seeing a similar thing happen with the price of Bitcoin. But this is just another example of how Goldman's being forced to work with these entities like FTX because they need to stay relevant, where FTX could potentially maybe buy out Goldman. As stupid as that sounds, but
Mhm.
shout out to Marshall Long, Bitcoin OG in the mining space. He apparently went to like a JP Morgan like Davos E conference. And by the way, I don't JP Morgan, of course, is not like on the Davos side. That's where the split is. I think Citibank is maybe a Davos E bank. Goldman Sachs usually is pro Fed side, not Davos. But he went to one of these conferences, and I think the one of the main guys, the head of communication, he was talking about it. And Marshall asked him like, "Hey, what do you see about like Coinbase and all these people and Bitcoin and crypto in general?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, we're probably gonna have to capitulate and buy out Coinbase so we can be in charge of this." And Marshall was like, "No, dude, Coinbase is gonna buy you out." And so I think that's a similar thing that you're seeing with FTX and Goldman.
Kind of
So
scaring them.
yeah, essentially. And it
I
all
mean,
just kind of goes back to, people are going to be forced to abide by the hand of Bitcoin. And there was another story earlier going back to the whole like Russian oil embargo or embargo on Russia. I mean, Russia earlier this week announced that they're going to make Bitcoin a part of their financial infrastructure. And so it's just become the default solution for everything, as we've seen over the years. I mean,
mhm.
uh, remittance payments in Africa. There's big news in El Salvador that I don't know has been released yet, but about the bond, wherever you stand on like the tether bond, that's here nor there, but people are having to run to this thing because it
Mhm.
just makes sense.
It's
And they
better
need,
for you to accept Bitcoin now because eventually you will have to hope that Bitcoin accepts you.
yeah,
You'll
and
hope
it's
to get
there.
into the environment. You'll hope that people are like, yeah, I'll give you some Bitcoin. People are
Yeah.
willing to sell it right now. That's crazy.
And hey, Bitcoin might not be for any one person right now because they just can't get their head around it and they're too goddamn stubborn. So it's not for anyone. It's not for, it might not be for anybody, single person, but it's here for everybody. And that's what matters.
Yep. Um, well, Bitcoin is for everybody, and that includes you. Even though you are sitting there waiting for the price to go up, just hang tight. If you're listening to this now, you're a true one because we're here. This is the dark times. This is the slow times. This is when true Bitcoiners are made.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this from the future and you weren't here in 2022, whenever we were hovering at 30, then you're doing your due diligence. You're going back through and seeing what it was like.
Yeah.
So hang tight.
Bear
And
markets are for building. We're seeing a
this
lot
is
of
when
that.
the wealth is made. If you want to make your generational wealth, just fiat mine like crazy and turn all that fiat into Bitcoin, and you will be. I mean, I said that I
Maybe
will.
not all of it, because if we're gonna have a dollar strengthening global crisis, you're gonna want to be long dollars.
Yeah, you might want to
But
hold a
yeah,
couple of
stack as
dollars.
much as you possibly can. Don't be an idiot.
And I say this. I said this before, but it's worth repeating because I think the perspective right now with the price of Bitcoin being at 30,000 is so good because right now everybody is sitting there going, God, I wish I could go back to 2018. Sitting here in 2022, I'd go back to 2018 and buy Bitcoin when it was 3 grand. I'd buy so many of them, you know,
Hmm.
and you're like, okay, well, yeah, you would now knowing that it's at 30 grand. But in 2018, from what I've gone back and researched and everything, people weren't so sure. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, we're at 3 grand. What's going to happen? We're going to crash down to $500. We're going to go up to, 8 grand. I don't know. We ever going to get close to 20 grand again? And so right now, you have the opportunity to buy, and you can't buy one Bitcoin for 3 grand, but you can buy zero point 0.1 Bitcoin for 3 grand. And guess what? In 2026, during that bear market or whatever's going on at that time, there are going to be people going, God, I wish I could go back to 2022 and buy zero point 0.1 Bitcoin for 3 grand because zero point 0.1 Bitcoin in 2022 is probably going to be worth 30 grand or more. So go ahead and buy yourself zero point 0.1 Bitcoin and maybe in a couple months buy another zero point 0.1 and just keep stacking. And before you know it, you just close your eyes. The best plebs out there, the ones I love hearing from plebs that DM me or whatever that I've talked to, and that's like they just they probably have basically the equivalent of life changing money for 98% of the world, but they're
Yeah,
still like working their like trade jobs. They're still stacking sets that like they're just head down, nose down, grinding and
yeah.
putting in the work because that's what Bitcoin is, proof
I
of
mean,
work.
there were, just to bring up another quick news thing. I've I forget who it was, but whoever's in charge of 401ks, they're now looking at Bitcoin as like legitimately like putting a portion of that into like your 401k. 401k is a shit coin. Like Bitcoin should be your 401k if it's not already.
Yeah.
And all these plebs that are working retail or just whatever trade job or any job, and you're putting something towards Bitcoin, just replace your 401k with Bitcoin. Not a Bitcoin IRA, unless if it's like too late and you're already so into your 401k as it is. Sure, maybe take the tax hit or whatever the process is and do the Bitcoin IRA. But honestly, this is going to pay off so much. And you think that you're 500 or 1,000, whatever you can afford a month into this thing, it just seems so small. I mean, it's just all about being a Bitcoiner and the long time preference that you need to have with this and any investment and knowing what the hell it is that you're investing in. And you're just going to treat yourself so much better. You don't need to rely on someone managing your money so that you can retire at 65, because odds are you'll probably be able to retire in your 40s.
Yeah. That's my plan. I'm gonna be retiring ASAP as possible. And by retire, I'll still do stuff.
Yeah.
Like people think like retire means like you're done, like you're just gonna float in a
Yeah.
pool somewhere.
You're
No,
going to golf every day. No, like that's not what motivates people.
no.
Motivate Motivation comes from you wanting to make change
The
and
moment I'm
you
retired, I will really start working then.
exactly.
Just
Like
change the
whatever
world.
actually mobilizes you. Like when you retire, you have the most valuable asset to you, which is your time, and how you invest that time in the passion and energies that you align with and again mobilize you. That's really, I think, when you start to see the world turn around for the better, because it's just like being on the gold standard, right? and
Hmm.
you see a renaissance, and
Watch the world change
slowly
for
but
the better.
surely we'll be on the Bitcoin standard.
You know it. Um, well, and one final shout out to the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. Please check it out. Go to shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin made simple. Use the promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off and stack your sats securely in a Bitbox hardware wallet. And also check out Movies Plus because I'm going to announce it here later on Twitter, but we just crossed the 250,000 download mark of our app. So that is pretty crazy. And we're growing rapidly. So join the revolution, join the uncucked platforms, and watch movies on Movies Plus, where we will bring you free speech, we will bring you the truth, and we will bring you entertaining content and not the garbage that gets spit out by all the Hollywood studios that try to appease the very vocal and whiny minority. We will have every voice represented here. It's not my job to take your voice away. So yeah, check out Movies Plus. Go to mymoviesplus.com. Start with a free trial and check it out. There's 6 Bitcoin documentaries. We're adding more all the time. So check it out. And yeah, I will. I guess that's all. We'll go. We'll do a quick over under. I think. Did we
I
both
think I
say it
won
was?
this one, right?
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
over 30 and a half
Yeah.
last time.
Yep. So you won barely. So 30 and a half. We're gonna go higher or lower next week.
Hmm. It's a good question. I want to say lower because I think the next FOMC meeting or Fed minutes is coming up, and so people are probably gonna anticipate
When is that?
Fed tightening, huh?
When is that?
When is that? I don't know. Is it June 8th or June 14th? Um, I'm
I'll
bullish on bearish prices these days, so
I'll go higher, but I don't think much higher. But yeah, I could see I could see your theory playing out where people kind of shit themselves a little bit in
yeah. So you want to go
um
over 31 and I'll go under 31?
yeah.
Cool.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you guys
Wait,
next week.
did we do 3 shows for box?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we
We
did.
did beginning, middle, end. Okay, just making sure.
Yep. Yeah. And
We want to take care of
also
our sponsors
yeah,
because they take care of us.
we love our sponsors. And also check out Phil is doing another Creature of Jekyll Island episode tomorrow. So check that out.
Yeah.
And we will talk
Big
to you.
episode. It's going to be a 3-parter
Oh boy.
because it's so important to understand how these Fed bailouts work. So part 1 is going to be just the typical, banking cartel invest in X company and they basically force a bailout. So they keep getting those interest payments. And part 2 is how the FDIC kind of implements itself with those bailouts. And then part 3 is going to be a deep dive in the great financial crisis. So this all covers chapter 3 of the Creature from Jekyll Island. So I'm doing that with my buddy, Uncle Jim. You can find him at Honest Node on Twitter, but I'm really loving this. And this book is really a deep dive of the history of everything centered around money and also centered back to coming to why Bitcoin matters most. So fix money, fix the world, all that good stuff. But yeah, check us out there.
All right. We will talk to you guys next week and check that episode out. And thanks as always for listening.
Toodles.